This is Dan Mum. Today I've got a pretty cool new pattern to show you. This is a simple diminished seventh sweep arpeggio. It could be moved around, for modulation, for different effects. Very cool business here. It can even be looped to create a sort of circular sweep pattern. To get the full tabs for this lesson, check out the link in the description. This pattern takes advantage of an interesting characteristic of the diminished seventh arpeggio, and that is that you can think of the diminished seventh arpeggio as being stacked minor thirds, all the way up to the next octave. So in case you're not already familiar with that, I'm going to demonstrate that real quick. So if we start at a lower octave of our root note of G sharp, this would be the one, the root. We go up a minor third to get our minor third. That would be the B here in the 7th fret. Now from there, we would go to the flat fifth, which would be a D. Now if you notice, you have a minor third, which is 1.5 steps. If we think of the minor third as a measurement of distance, so you've got 1.5 steps from the root to the third, 1.5 steps from the third to the flat fifth, and then 1.5 steps from the flat fifth to the double flatted seventh, and then 1.5 steps from the double flatted seventh to the octave of the root. So that just continues. You can go up or down the fretboard in the same way, and you'll always be within that same diminished seventh arpeggio. So we're going to be taking advantage of that for this pattern. All right, let's get into it. So for starters, if we look at the overall pattern, it's basically made up of two very similar but not identical diminished seventh arpeggio shapes. So let's take a look at just the beginning of each of those patterns, the first 3 notes. And this is where those patterns differ. Again, it's still going through minor thirds, as the diminished seventh does, but we're changing the positions of the notes just a little bit, and we'll get more into that in a bit. So the first 3 notes of the first pattern are basically just the diminished triad from G sharp. 1 note on the 5th string, 2 notes on the 4th string. Now let's look at the first 3 notes of the second pattern. And we can link those together, which would be the point in which we would loop the entire pattern, which again we'll get to in just a little bit. But let's take a look at that. If instead of just playing these 2 patterns back to back, let's start with the second pattern descending, like we would be if we were playing the full pattern. And we're going to be using an unusual fingering here, and you'll see why in just a second. So use your second finger here on the 15th fret, then your 4th finger on the 17th fret of the 5th string, and then you're going to pull off with your second finger on the 14th fret of the 5th string. It's a little awkward, but the reason we're sticking with the second finger there is so that we can slide back down to the starting point of the first pattern. And you'll notice we're using sweep picking here. Even though it's just 2 strings, when we play those first 3 notes, we pick down, and then hammer on. And on these second 3 notes, we pick up, and up, and then we pull off and slide. So let's look at that again. Okay, now that's the first 3 notes of each of those patterns. It's also the looping point for the full pattern. Now let's take a look at the first 3 strings of both of those patterns. This gets a little bit more interesting. So continuing up that first pattern shape, you'll notice that the rest of that shape looks like this. And you may already be familiar with this pattern or something very similar to it, as it's a common 3-string sweep pattern that you can use sliding to go either up or down the fretboard. Again, the distance between each of the notes is the equivalent of a minor third. And we're going to be hammering on, sweeping down and hammering on. Now that's for the first pattern shape. Now for the second pattern shape, we're just doing exactly the same thing, a minor third higher. And of course we'll be descending that, and we have a slide in between, like this. And this is something that you can practice on loop as well, and this is just a great pattern on its own. And we can also continue that up using that same principle of the diminished seventh arpeggio. You could take this little piece of the overall pattern and use it to slide all the way up the fretboard. Or we could go down. Lots of stuff we can do with that. But for now, we're just going to slide up and then continue down the second pattern shape. And those are just those first three notes of the second pattern. So let's put it all together now. We have these first three notes here. We have the first three strings. We slide up. Then we're going to descend the second pattern. So we have those, again, the first three strings, descending. Then we're going to have those first three notes descending. End with the second finger and slide back down to the root. Let's look at the whole thing again. Now the reason why we made that small change to the first three notes of the second pattern is to set us up to repeat or loop the pattern. You could end with your first finger there, but if you slid down, you'll see you're locked out of starting the pattern over again. Let's look at that looped real quick. I won't get too deep into the theory on this right now, just simply that we can change where we end, start a whole new diminished seventh arpeggio. So if instead of going back to the G sharp, we go up to the A, we can now play that exact same pattern again in A diminished seventh. And then if we start on the 14th fret on the B, that's the minor third of the original pattern, so we're back in the G sharp diminished seventh again. So you can see it's pretty cool. There's a lot you can do with that. And we're just looping the pattern, but we're, modulating, changing the feel of it. Very, very cool. Infinite possibilities there. All right, so remember to practice this slowly. Take it in sections like we just did. Each of these can be thought of almost as modules. You can do all kinds of different things with just each piece of this. So take it slow. Make sure you've got each part down very comfortably before putting them together. Remember, if you rush through it, you cannot get it down perfectly. If you want that perfect technique, you got to take it slow and gradual. Gradual daily improvement is the name of the game. This is Dan Mum, and I'll see you next time.